All right, man. I have an important announcement. SideEX YouTube channel is taken over by R.A. George, aka Blockchain DXB. So he has a long list of questions on crypto, blockchain, and Web3, and I'm here to answer and also learn from the one and only. So, man, this is a special honor to have you, sir.
Thank you, Sori and Marcos, for doing this. And this might be a good session, isn't it? I've been on your podcast and you've been on my podcast as well. So thank you so much for doing this. And for our listeners, they should know that I want to plan a series called as Web3 is just hype, because me personally, I'm not convinced that there is a legitimate use case of Web3. And look, by having a healthy debate, I'm more than happy to be proven wrong as long as listeners can benefit by it. So in case if you guys do want to be part of this session, you can reach out to me or Marcus. So Marcus, thank you so very much for doing this. And this is round number 2. Now, last time we talked everything about that is going on in the Bitcoin privacy world. So just wanted to check, since the conversation back then, how are things looking out so far?
Well, I mean, if I guess at this time there's a lot of optimism in the air. You know, the when you look at the fear and the greed index, it's greed is in the air. I guess
Yeah.
you know it's a lot of green candles and stuff. I guess in terms of the technology side of things, you know, I guess I do believe there's some interesting stuff going on in terms of DeFi, maybe like a lot of the AI narratives kind of like tagging along with Web3. I'm sure we're going to talk about what's the definition of Web3 because honestly, if you ask me, I also don't know. And then also there is this strong narrative on tokenization, real world assets. You know, connecting, basically you're trying to digitize actual physical products or services. You know, so trying to create this sort of trying to tether, you know, the I guess our physical reality, and then you got the web reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things going on. Regulation wise, I think there's a lot of regulations. Again, places it's interesting, it is optimistic, but other places what you're seeing in the west again is more of a political battleground. So I mean, I know some of your audience understand it very well, so hashtag if you know you know.
100%. And last time when we talked about, there wasn't so much of talk about regarding spot Bitcoin ETF, and you just briefed space
Yeah.
on tokenization. I think the only reason why there's so much of hype regarding tokenization and getting realized into the tokenization world is because of one guy, that is Larry Fink. He did have an interview on
Yeah.
CNBC, which was only for 7 minutes, by the way, where he talked about Bitcoin,
Wow.
and he just made a statement regarding tokenization. We does see a lot of potential use cases of tokenization, and that's it. The whole real world assets kick in. But my big question is, the tokenization would only work if it's that they on the oldest blockchain, that is Ethereum. I really wouldn't want to see the tokenization world to be built on a blockchain that gets shut down for well over 11 or 12 times in the recent past. Talking about blockchain and other things. Now, talking about Web 3.0, I wanted to check, Marcus, how would you define Web 3.0 and how are things looking out so far in the cryptocurrency space, keeping in mind Web 3.0?
Oh man, you have to bring that question up. Actually, it's one of the questions I actually kind of hate, I guess, but I guess to me the term Web3, you know, it is more like a catchphrase. It's than anything else. Like I guess if I'm talking to a regular Joe and Jane out there, like what is, you know, Web1, you know, read, write, and own. So what is Web3? And I guess just to keep it simple to me, it's like Web3 is based on, you know, the blockchain technology, and you have you can own your data. So that is sort of like my narrative. I would also include, it also uses AI and stuff. I know some people would use AI for Web4 or something like that, but because to be honest, I don't really have, I just see it as a sort of like a catchphrase, and I don't think it's coined or solidified yet. So I think we're still in the age where you and me can have the opportunity to capture what's the narrative of what Web3 is supposed to be, you know? So yeah.
I think the definition of the so-called terminology of Web3 was popularized by Dr. Gavin Wood, who was a co-founder of Ethereum back then. So he
And Polkadot.
Polkadot. So he actually said he does use a lot of buzzwords. Listeners should definitely go and check it out. And it was done almost a decade ago. So we are talking about Web3 terminology at least being a little over a decade ago, because the session, if I'm not mistaken, was in the month of March itself in 2014, where he actually said Web 3.0. Now, what is a bit ironic is that we didn't catch the buzzword back then, but looks like after the whole NFT hype, after the whole DeFi hype, this is a key buzzword or narrative. And to be honest, Marcus, based on my experience being in the Bitcoin blockchain world, one narrative which I particularly don't like is that of Web 3.0. I don't know why. And even Elon Musk does not like it. Even the former founder of Twitter, that is Jack Dorsey, he does not like the terminology called Web 2.0. He actually said, let's move to Web 5.0, isn't it, or Web 5? So
Yeah.
the different
Yes.
narratives are
Yes.
definitely there. Now, what I wanted to talk about is Markose, and even for our listeners, there's something called Pillars of Open Blockchain. And I do have a lot of interviews with CEOs, CTOs, founders, crypto evangelists like yourself, and some of them don't truly understand the Pillars of Open Blockchain, which is popularized and Andreas Antonopoulos. We have things like open, censorship resistant, borderless, neutral, permissionless, and publicly verifiable. Now, keeping Web 3.0 in mind, do you think Web 3.0 fits in? And I wanted to ask this to you, Marcus, because you've been interacting with Founders Association. You've been actively involved in one of the favorite groups that I like, that is Crypto with Coffee, and now you've started Society as well. Can you think of any particular projects or protocol that does actually follow all the pillars of Open Block, and then are they fully functional 3.0, or is it still work in progress? Now, the reason why I want to ask this is it's still work in progress. I attended my first Bitcoin meetup in 2000. We were told we are still in the earlier stages, it's work in progress. It's more than a decade, and the same narrative, we're still in the early stages, it's work in progress. So what are your thoughts based on interactions with the top guys from the so-called Web3 space?
Oh, okay. No, it's interesting you shared the last bit about, 2023, we're still early and stuff. Even now, people are saying the same thing. I guess half of me agrees with it, but my other half is telling me that I think rest of the people are late. I think that is that is my thought process. Just to go back to, I think, what you mentioned about the 5 pillars, right? Open source, censorship resistance, what's the other one? Permissionless, right? And I believe, sorry, I think I'm trying to remember the other one. Oh yeah, borderless, neutrality, like it's not controlled by anybody, and publicly, I guess, also verifiable too. I don't know. I guess when I think of like any projects which is related to the ethos or the spirit of what crypto is, or maybe Web3, I know not many people would like this answer, I guess, or they're not comfortable with this answer, but I see a lot of the privacy coins, like how they started the projects, like in terms of the spirit, and also how they launched their product, for example, like, Monero, and now you have these other small projects like, Xano and stuff, like, which is really interesting because a lot of them are like, open source projects, and, people are contributing, but also same time too, it's borderless. There's this neutrality, censorship resistance, definitely for sure. You're using, zero knowledge proof, using advanced, basically for all the new people out there, think of advanced mathematics, really protecting your transactions, your privacy and stuff, which is really interesting if you really look into it. So I guess from that category of crypto, to me, or say Web3, I feel they're the most closest to that 5 pillars in my point of view. So again, I know people can make the argument that some of the definition of what is open source means, what means to me is different to somebody else or whatever. So maybe my definition of open source could be totally wrong. So like, hey, I'm fine with it. Like, I'm not a super expert, but again, I can see like different factions has their own meaning, what it means to them, but also ideology too. I mean, a lot of this stuff is in the Web3 space is sort of religious. Again, I think because of the decentralized nature, and there's so much of levels of complexity, So yeah, for the one thing that keeps, just repeat again, I think to me the privacy space is I feel they're the ones who are really close to the 5 pillars that you mentioned, in my point of view. So
I totally agree.
but what about you? Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
No, I think we both have been advocates of privacy since a very long time. But lately, what I'd also like to discuss is some of the benefits that centralization does actually have. Now, we being in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space, we may not like to say it, but the classic example I spoke about in my Crypto and Coffee podcast yesterday was that, what happened with Coinbase, the glitch. The glitch when they were trying to log into the account, the balance showed up as zero. Now, one of the benefits I could say about Nation or centralized exchange like Coinbase is they can go out and fix it. Imagine such a thing were to happen, let's say, to Uniswap. What would happen then is the community gets to the decision-making process is relatively longer. Now, you could argue and you can state that the decision-making process Bitcoin is longer, and that is one of the benefits, so that no person can go out and actually go out and take it. Me personally, I don't like the terminology called Web 3.0. I think it is just a tool used by CTOs, CEOs, and founders to get more funding, to be honest. The only project that I can think of.
Get that money, baby, get that money.
The only project which I can legitimately think of was a project which was done by Amitaki called as Open Bazaar. I'm not sure if you've tried using that.
I remember. Oh, I remember. Yeah. I remember Open Bazaar very well, and I remember like I'm definitely a well-known figure in the early days. Even right now, he's working on this project called Darkfire. So that'll be kind of really interesting. But definitely, Amitaki is an interesting guy. A lot of people should really listen. I mean, you don't need to follow him, but hey, really interesting stuff he has to say.
Yeah, and I think our listeners listeners should know that he was the guy who actually started the whole that is Bitcoin improvement proposal. And he actually did the Open Bazaar project in just a matter of 6 hours. He actually did it for a competition. If you were to ask me the definition of Web
Yeah.
3.0, that is a perfect use case of Web 3.0. So essentially, buyers and sellers interact with each other. There is absolutely no central media entity involved. Unfortunately, the project died down because no one was actually using it. Somehow, some way, if I could. And I actually
Yeah.
remember when Open Bazaar was out, I was
Mhm.
like, this is it. This might be the end of Amazon. This
Yeah.
might be the end of eBay. But unfortunately, reality doesn't work based on what we perceive things to be. That is my thoughts.
I'm glad you said
Yeah.
that.
Now, what do you perceive the benefits, Marcos, of some of, let's say, Web 3.0 technologies in comparison to traditional Web 3 architecture? What do you think are some of the benefits?
Oh, I guess I think for me, I guess the benefits of Web3 is that it gives regular people like you and me, or even some of my family members too. They're not whatsoever. Even my mom, I think she still doesn't know like what I really do. So other than like come on videos or something. So it kind of, but like it gives people like the opportunity to have ownership of the whole infrastructure. So I think for me it is actually quite a really powerful thing. I don't think people really can. It's hard to grasp it because when you think of say our current space, Web 2, everyone thinks of, the FANGs or the MANGs, like, your Apple, Amazon, Google, I don't know, some other, big entities or something. But, most of these people, they don't realize, like, the reason these guys are so powerful is that they have all our data and, like, we just blindly give them permission, but they really make incredible amounts of money. So if this example doesn't make sense to some people, this other example, I want to share this is like, if you have a bank, if you're using a debit card or a credit card, now if you buy something from a supermarket or Amazon or whatever, like you're not just simply spending $100 or 50 dirhams or something like that. You are also you're giving your money, but you're also giving a lot of data too. Like that data itself, I think a lot of people don't fathom how powerful it is. So I guess so this is where like to bring back to suppose like Web3, I believe that we have a chance to like really decentralize, I guess, the structure. We can also change the social dynamic where instead of the government authorities or politicians or big corporations, they get to basically interfere or like covertly try to get information like into your digital life. They need to ask permission. So I think to me Web3 is a chance for all of us to change the social dynamics, to change the natural order of things. I know it sounds kind of utopian, I guess, maybe a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but is it worth fighting for? Personally, for me, hell yeah, yes. Like for me, it's more closer to having more economic freedom. Like I don't think I'm going to be a millionaire or anything like that. I hope I do, but the most important thing is you get to have a much more freer life. You get to have a much more creative life. You can get to focus on a lot of other creative stuff, like be like Amir Taki to create new projects, create new
Yeah.
things, and instead of working in a cubicle. And I'm sure most of the audience, many of them have worked in corporate America or corporate UAE or India. I'm sure you guys know. Is that what you want? I mean, I think there's a better way to do it. So I think Web3 is not just about the tech, but it's also like a cultural shift. So anyways, that's kind of like my little rant.
No, I 100% agree to it. And it's really interesting you mentioned about making purchases using, let's say, your physical devices, let's say your debit card or credit card or even your mobile app.
Yeah.
Now, one of the daunting things that will be coming up, whether we like it or not, is that of central bank digital currency. So what's going to happen is all this
No,
data,
don't say that.
rather than having it, let's say, with financial institutions, it is going to be the central bank or the government which will have full control over your spendings. And with the mobile app, they would also know the physical location where you're traveling. Now, we're living in the United Arab Emirates, and it is a beautiful country to do that. But imagine doing that in a country like United States of America. Let's say if you're a Trump supporter, and if you got right to go out and use your CBDCs, let's say for political donation, I'm pretty much sure the implications will be quite severe, not just in US. Let's say you can take it in Pakistan, what's going on right now, or even India. I think this could be quite heavy, and that's hopefully where privacy kicks in, and hopefully using your private key, we have full control, over your money. But at the same time, Marcus, there's also this thing called as a 20 baton test. So what governments can do is, let's say if you have your private keys and you don't want to give it out, the government can actually take a $20 baton, smack it over your head, and most often the not an average person will actually give out the private key. Now, in my Crypto and Coffee 8 podcast just 2 weeks ago, I did actually mention about the Bitfinex hacker voluntary gave out, I believe it was $1 billion worth of the US government. And the argument about con maximalist could say is that no, he has private key, he would say no to the government, but listen, when the government goes after you, you would have to spill private key, isn't it? So yes, at least there is a promise, there is some hope of Web 3.0. to at least make sure that we
Yeah.
have control over our own data. Now, what do you think about stable markets? Because stable coins are accounting for 90% of the total market. Do you think they follow the ethos of open blockchain? Because last week I just saw this news about Circle USDC. They went in and made a decision that they are no longer working with Tron chain. So what are your thoughts regarding stable coins, keeping in mind the whole Web3 development space?
Okay. Just to take a few steps back, you mentioned about the $20 hack. Many years ago, I remember in 2015 or something like that, it used to be $5. So, inflation has kicked up from $5 a baton to a $20 baton. So, I mean, so I want to address that. Now connected to stable coins, just a couple of weeks ago, I was invited to be on 100.FM radio station, and the topic was on stable coins. A lot of the people in Dubai or in the UAE, instead of putting their dirhams in their local banks, your usual UAE banks and stuff, they're putting it in stable coins like USDT, and they're getting 8%. So, man, these are regular people. I mean, these are not like fanatics like me or, like exceptional people like yourself. I mean, these are regular people. And if they are starting to see the light, and it makes a whole lot of sense, because it's easier for a lot of the people to grasp the idea, because I think this is where like marketing comes in. Like, a lot of us in the Web3 space, we try to be clever with our marketing, our messaging and stuff. But, Lisa, my wife, she reminds me every time, clarity is greater than creativity/cleverness. So for stable coins, it's just a clear thing. There's a lot of clarity. They understand, okay, it's US dollar, okay, it's digitized. They study a little bit. They start to figure out, wait a minute, 90% of the US dollar is digitized anyways. So, hey, why not? So either they choose USDC, or most likely, most of the people are going with USDT. So with regards to USDC dropping Tron, I get where they're coming from. I see there are some maybe slightly systemic risk, but I think a lot of it is more like political risk. But it is understandable. But majority of the people, like especially in Southeast Asian stuff,
Yeah.
they use USDT, and most of it is on Tron. I have used, Ethereum. I have used like internal network, like Binance Smart Chain. Now clients, folks, donations is all sent by Tron.
Yeah.
It's just easy peasy lemon squeezy, no headache.
The fact that the value is the same, so you don't have to worry about this. And I'm not sure if you follow Bankless, Markose, because just yesterday they released an episode with the former CTO, now the CEO of Circle USD, of Tether USDT, and he was actually giving a brilliant example. And I'm pretty much sure it was one of the Southeastern Asian countries. He was talking about how at the beginning of the year, when a person actually goes ahead and starts working, and by the end of the year, because of inflation, they actually find out that they actually have less money than they would have actually have done. And what these guys are doing is they're just putting their regular earnings into USDT as well. But my big question is, Markose, and I want you to think about this. Do you think the issues of stablecoin are replacing the role of a bank? Keeping in mind that Bitcoin was created so that transactions happen peer-to-peer. But do you think stablecoin issues, and I'm literally talking about, let's say, Circle USDC or Bitfinex and DT, or now the issues of FDUSD, which has overtaken Circle USDC's volume by almost more than double digits. Yes.
All right, you shared that. Yeah.
So do you think these coin issues are fitting into Web 3.0, or are they actually going back to Web 2.0? Now, granted, the use case is absolutely brilliant, and I personally do use stable. But when we talk about Web 3.0, do you think they fall into Web 3.0, or do they still go back to Web 2.0? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know what? Let me be a politician. I say they're like Web 2.5.
Oh, that's right.
I guess let me share, I guess, my simple logic behind it, because I guess just like exchanges, the exchanges are more like banking 2.5. So, and again, most of the people, most of the world, they're even exchanges too, which makes sense. I mean, it's a, which I support too. Like, they have to play the game. They're not playing the crypto game, like the on-chain economy game. Like, I mean, most folks are not ready yet, but that on-chain economy is going to come once we meet certain black swan events or something like that. Anyway, that's a whole rabbit hole. Let's not get into that. But when it comes to, stable coins, look, they meet a big need in the marketplace. There's also other reason too. At this radio interview I was sharing with RJ, there's a reason why they're not just simply storing their savings in stable coins, because before stable coins, before even Bitcoin, like if I had to send my money to my mom back in India, or to one of my friends in the States who need, like for his church donations, all that stuff, like you have to file documentation, passports, you gotta like give blood samples, like all this stuff. But with stable coins and with the most fast network, cheap, reliable, whether you choose Solana Nano or Binance Smart Chain or Tron, click, and that's it. So the world is moving faster. People realize that, hey, wait a minute, I got to make decisions faster. I cannot waste more time. So people are making a lot of decisions, and stablecoins is serving a big need, a big gap in the marketplace. And I believe more stablecoins will come in too. I don't know. I don't know if you have seen any. Maybe we might see some more stablecoin wars. Maybe something else will come up. Maybe a more decentralized stablecoin can come in. I hope so. But I think my only sadness is that Bitcoin is not a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It's more like that. That's been my, how do you say, a regret, a sadness. Like, oh man, like we could have changed the narrative, but it is living through Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, eCash, and now I'm seeing also Monero, other, nano, peer-to-peer payments, like going for that narrative. Dash, like, they're taking the lead, and there's more of it. So the good thing is we have options. So there's something to be.
Yeah, I agree on the point that you touched base about. It's not being part of a peer electronic cash system, and that is the narrative. Game theory and human greed. Looks like we don't have a solution for that. Now, it's really interesting that you touch base on stable coins as well, because there's definitely brilliant use case. Now, artificial intelligence as well. And what are your thoughts about an algorithmically backed stable coins, which is completely driven and managed by artificial intelligence? And what that stable coin can possibly do is probably learn some mistakes that Terra Luna did. So what are your thoughts, and will be something which Web 3.0 could possibly stand for?
I think that one is, I guess it's maybe like the folks who are like, class of 2013 to maybe say 2018 or something. I feel, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel they might disagree with that, I guess, because many of them watch too much of, including myself, watch too much of Terminator and Star Wars and stuff. So we saw what AI can do, so we kind of shit scared. But I guess for a lot of new people coming in, definitely I can see them find the novelty in that, So I know that part, but personally, I'm a little bit nervous about it. I don't have a rational answer why. So maybe it's my indoctrination, or maybe I watch way too much of, doom-driven shows and stuff. So, but that would be interesting. So, but I think it'll be interesting to see, like, if there's more, say, for example, it's not just one AI-driven algorithm stablecoin, maybe there are a couple of them, then I think I might be fine with that. Just because, like, okay, there is competition, like they're going to be focusing on each other competition wise. Then hey, like let's gather together and like rule the world. I know not to go on the conspiracy route, but hey, you never know. So
yeah, Marcus, what I wanted to find out particularly with you is that you interact with a lot of CTOs in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space, particularly from Dubai, with Crypto with Coffee, with BingX, and now it's StaticX. Is there any particular project or protocol that you're excited about that you want to tell our listeners, and what is it that makes them special?
Okay. Yeah, I think, man, there's many, I guess. I guess the first one that comes to my mind is, just to disclose, like, I'm really a great supporter. I really support this project called Zano, Zano. It's the guy who started Zano. His Twitter Telegram handle is Crypto, but I think his real name is Andre. I know he has a long Russian name, but he was the creator of the Crypto Node protocol, which Monero and other privacy coins are built on. So with Zano, like they're trying to create kind of like with that protocol, you can create, just like Ethereum creates tokens, you can have tokens which is privacy by default. So which is really interesting because there are some applications for like e-commerce, peer-to-peer marketplaces and stuff, which is kind of cool which I really like, because for me, I think like I want the individual, I want, small business owners to, like use some of this technology, not only, like to, protect their financial privacy, but also, hey, meet compliance as well too, like if they want to disclose, have selective disclosure and stuff, just like in the regular space too, like you have financial privacy laws and rights, when you're using Visa, MasterCard and all that stuff, so that's something I feel is interesting. Any other projects that has caught my attention?
What about WorldCoin?
I mean, I haven't really. I know a lot of people got hyped about it. I guess I know they got that WorldCoin ID thing and stuff. But I'm glad you brought that up, because not really into WorldCoin and stuff. I know a lot of people are crazy about it, but I do like one of the areas they're focusing on is using zero knowledge proof for digital identity. And I think that is, again, when it comes to ownership of your data and all that stuff, you got to own your ID. Because I was just talking to Pekka Kelka. He's known as a Papa Blockchain. And it was a good reminder. Like, I just realized that how much I'm really dependent on my phone, whether it's my Apple or my Android and stuff, and how I use it on a daily basis. So I use LinkedIn quite a lot and stuff. So that's my digital identity in many cases. And man, like with all the hacks and, identity theft is is a billion-dollar industry. It just dawned on me like, man, I really need to pay attention, like, how I use my data, how I can control my identity and not let somebody else misuse it or take it over, so because there's definitely going to be unintended consequences. So it definitely is really important. It's not for like, famous people, even regular people too, because they're the ones who are going to get affected the most, So yeah, I think projects like working on the identity side is something important because I believe that's one battleground where we have to have neutrality, where like, government has no power over you, these big corporations don't have power over you, and rogue entities and stuff like do not mess you up, but you are in your own power, so yeah, so I guess I really believe that the individual should have more power than the sort of this group think kind of deal. So yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree to it. And you mentioned about we being addicted to our social media so-called phone. Nikki Haley was one of the rhinos who possibly could be the president of the United States of America. She's a Republican, but she's proposing is that in order to use your social media, we will have to go ahead and give out our actual user ID. So that'll be, let's say, an Emirates ID card for someone who's in UAE, and then you can use your pseudonymous name. That would be absolutely dreadful. Now, the idea what she's saying is that in case you put out any fake news or incorrect information, the police or the government can actually go after you. Now, it is a bit strange that one of the Republican candidates is advocating for that. No one else is doing that, by the way, but hopefully she doesn't become the president. And this is the area which you touch base upon. Privacy is so we need to be having full control over your data. But look, Markose, I'm going to be saying a lot of people may not like. Now, me personally, I don't like the terminology called Web3. I don't think so. There's anything called Web3. There's private key, which is connected to your public address, which is connected to your public address, and you use a fancy algorithm like SHA-256. For Ethereum, you use KISAC-26. Is there anything more beyond in Web 3.0? How would you convince me that there is something more beyond that? Because look, I think we've discussed this also, Markose. When you look at decentralized apps, if you look at the number of people using the decentralized apps in terms of dollar amount, some of them are really scary. And to our listeners, I can that some of the top 5 dApps are decentralized apps. And I'm talking about, let's say, the top 10 blockchain. We're talking about Ethereum, Binance, BNB chain. Some of them have a 24-hour volume of less than $30. So how would you convince that there is more to it than just hashing them?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and I know I've been thinking I really want to challenge you and stuff. But I'm just like, man, I'm the only like my only weapon is the privacy sector.
Yes.
But then again, like privacy for most people is like it's like the final frontier. So like that topic is not an acceptable one, or people don't care about it, and I get it. It's the last thing you can think about. But in terms of real use cases, I think I think we have a long way to go. I guess I know some of the metaverse projects, like you saw like Decentraland. I don't know about Mana or whatever. Like didn't have much people using it and stuff. So my only hope, I think one of the green shoots I'm seeing like in terms of Web3, other than privacy, would be the gaming side. I think games. So certain gaming projects and stuff like go into mobile gaming, or even so, for example, like Society X, we partnered with the Ton Foundation and is a blockchain connected with the Telegram. So they have this kind of a fun hyper casual game called Not Coin. Basically, it's just like one of those clicker kind of games, but it's simple, but it has garnered over like 20 million users in 1 month. So which is really interesting. So games is one important frontier. I feel that Web3 can really thrive. And if I look at the history of games outside of Web3, like even the Web2 space, I think gaming has pushed, the use of internet technologies to a whole new level. And a lot of great business ideas came from games, like whether it is, creating like a marketplace for skins or, like digital art or digital collectibles. So it created some new business opportunities. So, George, would history repeat itself maybe in the Web3 space? I hope so. I think maybe we might see some, I guess the gaming side would be the closest to, but would they be meet all the 5 pillars of what blockchain or crypto is all about? Not fully, because they're going to be public blockchains. I don't know about censorship resistance. Would you need that? I don't know. You would want some transparency, I guess. Like you don't want other players to cheat and stuff. So who knows? Like, but yeah, I guess I guess that's my only best argument with you. But I think other sectors and stuff, I'm a little bit that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one.
One of the reasons why I asked this, because roughly around a few months ago, I did have an interview with one of the so-called CEO of a DeFi project. And in his white paper, he said,
Ah,
you have to go ahead and submit your KYC to us. And I hope he's definitely listened to this podcast, because they actually go ahead and ask him this question. And they're going to go ahead and decide if you can go ahead and use the system which is claiming to be a DeFi. And then you can go ahead and use your DeFi. And I'm like, you are the one who is going ahead and making the decision, isn't it? And users have to go ahead and send in your documents. What happens if you go ahead and sell those documents? And he immediately said, maybe let me just speak to my legal team and get back on that. So these are certain areas in the pillar in blockchain. I think we also need to factor into consideration the whole blockchain trilemma problem, which is scalability, and security. So, to be honest, as of yet, I'm not able to see any projects or protocol that are currently working on that. There is promise that we will get there someday, even if without Uniswap for that matter. I'm not sure of Markose that there are a couple of projects which Uniswap does not allow to get on board. And if you actually try to find,
I know that.
yeah, so there is a particular team of people who go and discusses and says, no, you can't be on board. So there is a big question mark regarding centralization. Now, if you talk about Uniswap being peer-to-peer, you could well make an argument that Face Marketplace are peer-to-peer as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you use the Beezer?
The Bizzle? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I could create a fake email ID. I could buy and sell things. I've actually done that as well. The last sports watch that I had soon to, I actually did that. I thought, you know what? Let me not use my own real name. Let me use my fake name. I did not even use my mobile number, use my dad's mobile number. Yeah, I do have my privacy in place. You could also make an argument that there is a centralized entity like Facebook or the Beezel that can actually offer a peer-to-peer marketplace, and that area does actually work perfectly fine with so-called the Web 3.0 space. It's going to be really interesting how this narrative plays out.
Yeah, no, but no, that's interesting. I didn't know about the Uniswap blocking those projects. But is the name of the projects disclosed, or is it like kept private?
Find out there's just a bunch of few people. Even MetaMask for that matter. MetaMask, you could arguably say it is Web 3.0, but in certain countries, definitely not in Dubai, they do not allow users to go and use MetaMask. And this just happened, if I'm taken, roughly around 9 months ago. And then there was this whole question about people talking about, is MetaMask actually Web 3.0 because they are not allowing users? Now, from MetaMask's point of view, which is managed, I believe, by consensus, isn't it? They have to follow certain rules and regulations, and that's one of the reasons why they had to go out and follow it. Now, because what I want to find out is, because you're talking to a lot of CTOs in this space, what do you think are the main challenges they are facing so far as widespread adoption of Web3 is concerned, and how do you propose overcoming them?
Okay, no, that's a great question, and that'll always be these eternal struggles. A lot of these technical founders, a lot of the tech people, I guess, again, I think, like, because to me, I think maybe a couple of years ago, like, some of this tech stuff is like really novel and stuff. But now, like, it's sort of getting commoditized. So, but how do you stand out? The only way I think you really stand out is actually having a great, like a marketing plan, or like, some sort of like, like a branding strategy or something like that. Just to make it really simple, is how, like, whether you're a founder, whether you're like a marketing person like me, or even if you're like a technical founder, especially the technical founders, a lot of them struggle. They know their stuff really well, but they struggle to articulate the value of why their project matters. Why should you, George, care about this project? So and that has always been a struggle. And one of the struggles, I'm sure I think you might have seen it too. Like, and I'm seeing here in Dubai, because there's always this, like, as me and Lisa, we have sort of like this American mindset, like other people who are more like a British mindset or Indian mindset. So sometimes they don't really want to state the obvious, It's like, I don't know, I don't know, like, say for example, like, when it comes to Americans, I know they can be pretty direct. Like, you want to make money, let's do this, But for others, they don't want to sound like, kind of salesy. I think that's one thing they struggle, because it kind of makes them cringy, kind of makes them, like, out of place. Because, I mean, for me, I can get it. It's really difficult to do sales. I mean, like, you're going to get rejected. I mean, like, it's tough. So, but when it comes to their particular project, I think, like, they need to get help, or at least from their side, like, one is they need to, like, make their message as clear and as simple as possible. And I know with the tech stuff is that easy, but I know also to be socially aware. Like, if you're talking to, George, okay, like, talk to him as he's a podcaster, not as a VC kind of guy or something. If you're talking to some random Joe and Jane, they are not not going to understand all the Web3 terminologies and stuff. So you really got to like be socially, you have to like, it's good to be technically smart, but you also have to be socially smart as well. So because the reason is that we are in a decentralized industry and, like you have different factions and stuff. So you got to have that social smarts to articulate your value better and also target the right people too. So especially if you're a technical founder, you don't have much resources. The best scenario is that to market yourself everywhere, like, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, but your resources are limited. So you got to be wise with which distribution channel you want to use. Now, if you're in the MENA region, just for all the folks out there, here's some for you. Use LinkedIn as a way to showcase who you are, because that is how other VCs and other people kind of judge you and, like try to want to trust you because, people come and go. It's like New York. People just come and go. So it's a very transient place. So again, it's just the way people market and also communicate as well. And now we are reaching in this Web3 space where decentralization has been this strong value. Your personal brand is going to be an important one because, people will not just simply trust you, but they are also going to verify you. They also want to talk to other people and, get consensus, like, so if you're going to think in that thought process, I guess. So yeah, so this is where I think like this is some of the things I see with some of the technical founders, but also other founders too, because I know they struggle with that. So the reason I say that is recently I've been working with somebody. So yeah, so I'm just sharing this thing. You're getting the actual feedback, actual like this is like real case going on.
I agree. And Marcus, for everything that you said regarding CTOs unable to put their message across, there is a simple solution to that. The story alchemist. What do you think of that?
Oh yeah, sir. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yes.
Because
When it comes to messaging, yeah, we do what we do best. Yes, sir.
So I think a lot of the CTOs and founders should definitely get in touch with you and your missus, because I think what you guys are putting across is very short and sweet, simple. Especially Lisa, I think your missus isn't it? Her messages are complete. At least mine is very long and boring, but I use more for as the show notes for my podcast. Definitely our listeners should check out what the story alchemist is. Now, Marcus, based on your experience, do you envision a world where most of the world application, be it let's say finance, supply chain management, KYC, or even social media, will eventually operate in purely Web 3.0 in a decentralized, or I'd like to call it distributed way? And if yes, how long do you think that would take?
Oh, okay. No. Oh, great question. Great question. Man, I guess eventually they would. I guess we are seeing a lot of the financial stuff, like the industry is moving towards that. A good example is, in India, you got the UPI. So they are using, some sort of, whether you call it blockchain technology or DLT, distributed ledger technology, some of that. So some sort of variation. In terms of social, that part I'm not sure, but there are alternative social media platforms, like think of Odyssey or maybe Rumble or something like that. I don't know about like LinkedIn or Facebook and stuff. I mean, they're too huge. They have a good thing going on, so why change something if it's not broken? If I was one of the higher ups, right? Like, so I guess with the financial systems, I think we'll see some fast-paced change in terms of payments, transactions, but definitely with the AML stuff. Definitely they are using some sort of blockchain technology. I guess right now the battle is like, are they going to use either like Ripple or maybe some other, so I would say sort of centralized blockchains, I guess, which tends to favor more, trade finance, or they have a more closer relationship with governments and stuff. Like think of Ripple, think of Adira Hashgraph. I also see like, BSV too, like they've been working with, IBM and some other governments as well too. So, but they're taking sort of like a very different route, so which is interesting. So I know BSV. I get it. It's not everyone's a cup of tea, with the Craig Wright situation. Calvin is also, is also a character too. But yeah, in terms of from a holistic point of view, I would say maybe like in 10 years time, I think we can see incredible adoption in terms of blockchain, in terms of using blockchain and cryptocurrencies, especially from like financial institutions, government agencies, even corporations too, in terms of supply chain management stuff. I wouldn't be surprised. Like they will, because they would want to, they will kind of like FOMO, not in buying tokens, but, just to get into the blockchain technology and, showcase to the shareholders that, hey, we are forward thinking and all that stuff. So, they still buy into the corporate, social responsibility, scheme. So
regarding supply chain management, I think in 16, and that is before the halving, I did read an article by PwC, which did actually state that by year 2022, 5 trillion worth of transaction of supply chain management will be done on blockchain technology. If you look at the cryptocurrency market, it is still struggling at the 2.5 trillion mark. But of whenever we are doing these reports. And I did actually write an article, this was in 2000, and I believe, where I actually talked about why blockchain technology will not be an ideal fit for supply chain management. And we can probably talk about this after the interview, because I think using blockchain technology, or
Mm.
the promise of blockchain technology, you can actually make fake products or counterfeit products to appear genuine. And it's pretty simple. Product moves from part A to part B to part C. In part C, what I can do is I can literally replace the physical product because there's hashing from the previous block. I can put a counterfeit product, and hey, I'm using blockchain technology. This is 100% legitimate. So definitely go and buy it. So
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. No argument from me on that. Yeah.
metaverse, Marcus, because one of the vision of come down for Dubai to be the top 10 cities in the world so far as metaverse is concerned. And I used to have a series every Friday called Metaverse Everything, but I'm not seeing absolutely any news regarding metaverse. Now, when you talk about metaverse, Marcus, how do you think a distributed or decentralized metaverse so far as user experience is concerned, let's say in decentralized or sandbox, versus a centralized user experience, let's say with Apple or even Quest for that matter? What are your thoughts? Which will offer a much better user experience in the metaverse? Will it be, let's say, Apple's Vision Pro? Will it be Meta Quest 3? Or will it be something, let's say, in a decent land or sandbox? Now, in decent land and sandbox, you can still use the Apple Vision Pro, you can still use Metaverse 3. I feel it would be better to build it, let's say, on an Apple device. So we are talking about user experiences, and it's allowed to be proven wrong, to be honest.
Yeah. Honestly, I think because like when it comes to the metaverse, I'm not really that excited about it. I know, but because it's just that I have to share with the audience, like, when it comes to meta, it doesn't really excite me. I know like a lot of people made like a huge hype about it. Like, I mean, to me, it doesn't make any sense to have this big ass laptop over your eyes and stuff, like the reason I have this sort of criticism is, I like going to the desert. I like to like, see like nature and stuff, or go to the beach, or, like the only time I think I see an actual use case for metaverse is like, say, for example, I want to understand, what it's like to be in Atlantis or something, or what it's like to be in ancient Rome, where the goggles experience, what the Colosseum, or maybe here in the UAE, like what was Dubai like in the 1950s or the 40s or the 30s, so maybe like in terms of like learning history and stuff, kind of like that Star Trek kind of feel, you're in the room and this augmented kind of thing, reality takes place, or visual reality takes place. So yeah, I guess maybe that part I'm positive, but to answer your question on which one would be better, decentralized or centralized, I think at the moment I go with centralized. I think just because you do require folks who, like who could, like really make the experience
Yes.
much better, create the user experience and stuff instead of, I know, more like a decentralized approach. I know because I think you would need like, because I guess the current technology or the state of affairs we have, I think centralized is the best option. But just want to add a little bit about the metaverse. Like, I feel there's going to be a battle between virtual reality and augmented
Yeah.
reality. Now, your virtual reality would be, your Apple Vision Pro, that headset, because right now it's quite a sexy product for a lot of the techie people. They're diving in deep. They're getting, not only just the Pro set, but also maybe like this whole, I don't know, like this $10,000 contraption thing you sit inside. But I feel that in the long run, augmented reality is going to win, I feel, because for most people to get into this metaverse gameplay or something like that, you would need like augmented reality, kind of like a Apple Vision One or something. I don't know, like Mini One, something like that. You wear it, like, okay, I'm seeing the screen right now, but I'm also getting like, feedback or something like, hey, what's my Wi-Fi strength? Hey, if I'm having a meeting or something, like you could have that, just using like, lightweight kind of stuff. So that's my, my thought process. Like, wait a minute, I think we might see sort of like this VR versus AR kind of thing, So within the metaverse thing, I think there's going to be this battle of these two narratives. So
I think you're
that's
100%
my
spot
take.
on. And I very specifically remember when I started the metaverse everything, and you were skeptical about it as well. And you were right at that point
Yeah.
of time, because 2022 or 90% of investors lost their money as well. So you're 100% right on that. And I do agree that there's some competition between, let's say, virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality as well. But what I'd really recommend you to do is, and even our listeners to do, is Lex Friedman, one of the gangsters of podcasting. He has an episode with Mark Zuckerberg.
Mm.
And it's hard for us to actually experience this
Ah,
because they are doing it in a metaverse. And you could see Lex Friedman
yeah.
constantly saying it literally feels like you're sitting right next to me. So when you talk about the use case of metaverse, let's say visiting historical places, I can think of, say, our Zoom call or the podcasting session could be done metaverse. And eventually, as devices get better, the experience is going to be much realistic. And in sporting experiences, let's say if you watch a UFC game or if you watch a football game, you would literally feed him with the ability to go ahead and move 360 degrees. It's going to be really interesting to see, with quantum computing, how all these things would work. Now, I do trust
True. Oh man.
well, and this is regarding, let's say, medium of exchange and payment in the metaverse, Marcus. Much as I dislike saying it, in the metaverse, rather than using, let's say, cryptocurrency, I do feel, I hate to say this, that central bank digital currency will be an ideal fit in the metaverse. So, what are your thoughts? Because
Oh really? You think so?
and
Oh.
this matches perfectly because look, I do think 3 to 5 years down the line, we'll be hearing quite a lot of news regarding central bank digital currency. Probably a decade from now, I do think CBDCs will be mainstream, whether we like it or not. And at the same time, metaverse could potentially be mainstream. And at that point of time, I do feel CBDCs might be an ideal fit in the metaverse. Keeping in mind the transaction per second, the user experience, what are your thoughts on that, Marcus?
Okay. That's interesting. You combine metaverse and CBDCs. These two topics not my favorite, not my favorite. But I do get where you're coming from. I mean I can see that play because I remember like what was it about like in 2020 or 2021 if I recall, like man, like the metaverse thing was such a huge deal. Like people made a big deal out of it. Like I felt like I know I need to put my conspiracy hat on, kind of thing. Hashtag loyal to the foil. It definitely felt it was like artificially driven. It's not like this sort of like a natural thing. This is just like out of nowhere. This is like this heavy push. Like I never seen so many like these KOLs or these influencers just like suddenly yapping about stuff. I'm just like, wait, what? And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised that they will push the CBDCs. And the CBDC is going to be. It is a tough. I think it's going to be a tough one. But I think for those who are kind of working behind the scenes, they want to push they want to push that narrative. I could see that being used in the metaverse because if you're going to have based on some of to have a great metaverse technology experience, then you know what, like it has to be centralized, and most likely it's easier for CBDCs or like central banks or maybe some other larger institutions to have business partnerships or public-private partnerships. So that is possible unless there is some sort of like a grassroots movement pushing this thing out there. So, but I'm sure there are others out there who are fighting for a more like a metaverse that is an open verse. Let's put it that way. So
yes,
so I think a good example is like with maps. So that is quite interesting. So I'm trying to keep an eye on it. I'm not that smart on ordinals and stuff, but I do know that there are a lot of smart people involved in it. So I'm just being a student. I'm just doing my best to learn
absolutely.
and try to understand what's ahead of us.
Regarding CBDCs, the OGs, the godfather of cryptography, David Shaw, he's actually working, if I'm not mistaken, with the International Bank of Settlement, and he's working on privacy.
Oh, wait,
yes, I'm not sure if he's working with the International Bank of Settlements or if he's working with the World Bank. So he's actually working to create a CBDC with using signature sharing, so it'll be privacy focused as well. And the other thing I can think of when you talk about central bank digital currency, one way how they can maintain privacy is the issuance, management, and supply is done by the central banks, but all the block production is actually done by the privatized banks. And there you have full privacy as it is. Now we have TPS, you have KYC. I'm really curious to check where does stablecoin fit in, because according to me, once CBDCs goes mainstream, I really don't see a use case of central or stable coins, because why would you want to use coins? Because exactly
Maybe.
what
Yeah,
would do.
I guess so. I don't know, but I really believe that like there is like a sizable population,
Yes.
sizable contingent like who they will fight this narrative. I mean, like it's not stable coins. Definitely, I will see the rise of privacy coins coming up. Like because a lot of the regular people who are getting into it, they kind of like FOMOed into getting into the Ethereum ecosystem, the Bitcoin ecosystem, Avalanche ecosystem, and stuff. But later, like once once you get in, you learn you learn the ropes and stuff, and you start to realize, wait a minute. Pretty much all these blockchains are public. So I do believe a lot of people will be like, wait a minute, like we need to have some sort of financial privacy and stuff. Like anyone can track and trace and can extract like information that can be used against me or like front run me or whatever. So I could see that. I do people will fight back against it, and I hope so. I hope so, because to me it's like not a big fan of like CBDCs and how they use it and stuff. Like for example, in the United States they had Project Hammer Hamilton and Project Aurum, which is basically like your American CBDC, and they say it's a blockchain, but it's not
Even
really.
said that, yeah,
To me, it's like a monster. Yeah,
100.
yeah. So I mean, to me, it's just a monstrosity for me. So because way I see it, look, like a lot of people be like, what you have? Look at the coin market cap. Look at CoinGecko. There's enough of like tokens and cryptos out there, options out there for people to use. So that would be my case for like, why should you go for CBDC? Like, like you can operate outside. So that's my argument, I guess. Not the best argument, but I guess we'll see.
I think what you're saying is 100% valid points, and I definitely agree to it. Now, Marcus, I want to talk to you about the giant that is BlackRock. They have gotten into the Bitcoin game and they've completely changed Bitcoin ETF. So, what are your thoughts of BlackRock, Vanguard getting into the Bitcoin blockchain world? And should they be participants in the whole Web3 space? What are your thoughts on that?
I guess like I guess for me it's like anyone can participate, I guess, but I guess it is just funny because I remember when I made the decision, what, I'll start dollar cost averaging into like Bitcoin or some other cryptos, was like what, 2017 or something like that. So I remember like a lot of the guys I think who we are familiar with would be like like fuck the banks, or authorities or whatever. But now I'm seeing a lot of these BTC maximalists like, oh, they're like all, oh yeah, like BlackRock is getting into Bitcoin, Vanguard or State
Yeah.
Street. Like to me it's not a joyous. I'm sorry, I hate to be this party pooper, but I'm not excited about it. Like they can come. I'm not gonna. It's open, but I'm just like, are you sure we want to celebrate this? I mean, yeah, look, I get it. Like numbers goes up is great and stuff, but then like Tether has also printed, like $1.7 billion out of nowhere. Guess where it went to, So like
Exactly.
there's a lot of like manipulation from one side, and BlackRock is also super powerful. They are going to manipulate not out in front of you, but they have their own legal structure and stuff. But at least one thing you can count on BlackRock and Vanguard, and especially BlackRock, is, say for example, if they invest in your company, George, they will 10x your company, because they're not here to just throw some money and play. These guys, they will manipulate, but they also are business minded too. They want to grow.
True.
For them, growth. So that's one side. I think there's a silver lining. But in terms of the power structure, like BlackRock, I'm sure like many of the mining companies, they're either the number one shareholder or number two at
Yeah.
least. So that should raise some red flags. I mean, this is where I want to like argue with some of the BTC maximalists. Like, first of all, your code is controlled by Blockstream. Now you got these guys slowly taking over, and you're all talking about numbers goes up and stuff. So I don't know. Like, is this really what all about? Is it really Bitcoin? I mean, I don't know, man. So I'm not saying, apologies for being like a Debbie Downer, but it's like I'm just super cautious. I'm just like, nah, there has to be a better way. So.
Now, I want to agree to what you're saying, and I couldn't agree more, because what you're saying is absolutely correct. And look, the whole promise of Bitcoin was separation of money and the state. But I often feel that the role of the state has been replaced by giants like BlackRock, even multi-billionaires, celebrities, and influencers. So the big question is, do we trust the government, or do we trust tech giants, multi-billionaires? Ideally, we should be trusting in cryptography, hashing algorithm, and mathematics. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this narrative plays out. Now, Marcus, you did mention about BlackRock owning a couple of the mining companies, and BlackRock also owns a massive share in Coinbase and also MicroStrategy, the notorious person called.
Right, yeah. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, man, how did I forget his name? Because I know him quite well. Who's the guy from MicroStrategy, Marcus?
Oh, Michael Saylor.
Silly
Yeah.
Michael, I mentioned him at least a zillion times in my podcast. Now, do you envision a hype scenario? BlackRock will directly or indirectly go and change the underlying consensus mechanism as well. The reason being, this whole woke notion and the whole ES drive is only driven because of BlackRock. And I'm pretty much sure if the investors ask them question that Bitcoin has so much of mining power, why don't you go and switch it to, let's say, from proof of work to proof of stake? Now, in theory, it's possible, but what are your thoughts about that thing to actually happen in the physical? What are your on it?
Oh, then it's gonna be the hash wars, like
Yeah.
the Bitcoin hash wars like 10x or something. Because for me, I am a big supporter of proof of work, not because like I want to like raise the CO2 level and cut the trees and all that stuff. It's just that because like proof of work to me, it is an honest consensus because it connects to the real world. With proof of stake, and just to keep it simple, like I mean, you could sort of like it's more of like, I don't know, who has gotten early or something like that. Like just it's more like a placement kind of thing. It's sort of like a mafia cartel. I don't know, not the best example, but I think a lot of people have this antagonism towards proof of work is that they can talk about the energy usage and all that stuff, but they ignore like the banking system, how much energy they use and waste and stuff. Governments also waste a lot of energy. I mean, they're the worst one. Like
The now,
the U.S. government, the U.S. military.
yeah, even the number of
You
ATMs
know,
that we have all over
so
the world, you need to factor that into consideration as when we talk about energy consumption in the field world. Yeah.
no, agreed. Yeah. So I think it really comes to me. It really comes down to like a lot of these people. They make a big deal about Bitcoin is using a lot of energy is because they think that the value of Bitcoin is useless. Like that energy should be used for something else. But for me, I would prefer to have economic freedom than just simply to conserve energy. And this energy is not just simply wasted just like that. It's not like a wasted effort to put it on Bitcoin. But like Bitcoin is actually like solving a really huge problem, and that is like creating trust in the world.
Yes.
That's the price that we are paying for because what we see with governments and stuff, a lot of these people have manipulated the monetary supply system. Like that's created unintended consequences in the marketplaces, which has created a lot of wastage in various parts of the world and stuff so that part, not many people pay attention to it. And I think there are certain groups and stuff, they push this narrative, but I think later on in a couple of decades and stuff, I think we'll come back and realize like, oh wow, like man, we really messed things up, like we have like criticized fuels and stuff, but say for example lithium and other rare
Yeah.
metals, the extraction is a poisonous process. I mean, and also the human life and stuff. I mean, like let's not get started over there. So I know that's a whole deep rabbit
Yeah,
hole,
one
man.
percent agree. And the only thing which I'm worried about is Michael Salem. He's also a member of the Crypto Council Innovation, which focuses on mining. And if you know his past history, he's definitely a massive advocate of Bitcoin. He has a very strong experience in the energy sector. The only thing I'm worried is maybe indirectly they would actually force Michael Salem to go ahead and sell or dump all of your Bitcoin, or you're going to no longer be part of MicroStrategy. And knowing the notorious history of BlackRock, for them dealing with such things is absolutely tiny. Now, Marcus, I just wanted to ask one question, and this is regarding OpenAI. They have a physical device in, I think it is right in JLT. Do they still have that physical device, the verification?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Because earlier they had it, I believe like last they had it at the IFC at the Crypto Oasis office. When last year, so sorry, I mean, Coffee or Crypto, we organized an event with IOST, also joined us as well. So they had that thing over there. But unfortunately, that thing didn't work because of the Wi-Fi issue at the Cypher Capital Hub. So it was like bad timing. But there hasn't been much news about the physical orb, like scanning your iris and stuff. So I haven't heard that for a while. So it's been months.
And would you be comfortable to do your own verification in that physical device? Would you be comfortable?
Oh hell no! Oh hell no! I mean, man, bro, I have watched way too much Hollywood movies. I know how the story ends, man. Terminator is gonna rise up. Skynet is gonna take over. So, like, man, I'm trying to stop that prophecy, man. I'm trying to stop it, yo.
Marcus,
This ain't no game, man.
because you touch base on Terminator AI. As a matter of fact, the next question that I'm going to is written 100% by ChatGPT-4. So what I did was, Marcus, I put the transcript of the previous conversation, I put it into ChatGPT-4. I put down the list of questions I prepared for him. I put it into ChatGPT-4, and a prompt that I asked is, can you ask Marcos a really interesting question? That was my only prompt. So what I'm going to be reading out next is, Marcos, is a question by the so-called
Okay.
and I'm really curious to check what your answer is. So let me read it out word for word and let's see what your answer is. So the question by ChatGPT-4,
Right.
as we move towards a more decentralized internet or Web3, most people we meet are online and meetings are done online. The rise and impact of social media have evolved and scaled to some extent. How do we balance our needs for independence with natural inclination for belongingness, being part of community, and having the human touch and human element in our day-to-day lives? Now, this is a question done by AI, not by me. So what is your response to that?
Okay, my response is like, first of all, wow, okay. And wait, this is what ChatGPT-4,
Yes.
right? Like this is that you're using the. Wow, okay. First, I'm a little bit blown away. So that's actually is quite cool and really thoughtful question. Man, are you sure this is somebody else? I'm like, man, I'm not used to this kind of stuff. This is like kind of scary, but wow. In terms of how to balance, that's a really great question because that is something I have been working on myself because a lot of times I'm working remotely at home. I'm trying to do this podcast. I, like talk to, online, but I think personally for me, and I would also advise other people in the Web3 space space too, to have like, social outings, have that physical connection with people too, whether it's like, community meetups, or even also like, it doesn't have to be Web3 or whatever, like, or like related to the blockchain and stuff. It could be like what you're doing, George, like, say, that Ironman races and stuff, or say, I know here a lot of people are quite religious, so there are like, like church cookouts or something like that, or, get-togethers. I'm sure like there's some folks in our space, they're into like, mindfulness conferences and all that stuff, which is cool. And that requires like you to, like get your butt off your seat and travel to a different place, or, like meet actual people, have that physical, like meet up and conversations. Because I think like intellectually and also body wise too, like you do feel good, especially if you're in the right crowd of people. It's actually quite amazing how mentally, you feel great, because I mean, it's great. Like you and me, like we are in Dubai, but we are like far off places. I'm chatting with someone in Turkey. I'm chatting with someone in Russia. I'm chatting with my friends in the United States. It's great talking to like multiple people, but I mean, how much of blue light from the screen can you take? You know what I mean? So it's good to have a different perspective and have that physical balance and sorry, I'm not balance interaction, because it's good to change. It's good to change your routine and stuff than being stuck on the screen. And like a lot of time, long hours, all the blue light frying my eyes is not good. So
Yeah, I doesn't agree, and I do think that work-life balance is so critical. I do a lot of obstacle course race, and one thing which I recently started to do, Marcus, and this goes back to maybe 6 months. Saturdays, Sundays, I don't touch my laptop at all, no matter what. Even if the price of Bitcoin has shot up by 50%, 100%, 90, Saturdays, Sundays is completely out. And I've recently started doing a lot of hiking as well. So if any of the listeners who do want to go out for any hiking event before the weather gets hot, you can always check it as well. And now, finally, Mark,
that's good.
as we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience, whether it is about your journey or any upcoming events or anything to do in the world of Web3 that you're about?
Okay, I guess I think we covered a lot of stuff in terms of like the totality of it. In terms of announcements, I guess with Society X, just to let people know that it's not just myself. I have other people in the team. So we organize some events like with the Torn Foundation. We do this monthly meetup where we have like panel discussions with some people on some of the technical stuff. But also from my side, I'm trying to push more of the marketing stuff as well, because again, I think a lot of the people in the tech space need to learn about marketing and most importantly communications. So definitely want to have those conversations. And for me, I just want people to know that like, hey, if you're working on an interesting project and you're cool with casual conversation and you want, and you know what, you're comfortable and you're confident to talk about who you are and what you're doing. Hey, like Society X has a YouTube channel, and we want to like highlight some people. And also from our side, we want to build a relationship with you, and we're not just simply like, hey, let's just create content. We want to like build a community, and our main focus is on three things: to grow, to flow, and know. So what we mean by grow is grow our community, grow your community. Flow is to help create deal flows, business partnerships, and to know is get people to know you. So and also, and on the other side too, is guiding you who you should know. So that's what we feel that will help make the Web3 Nina ecosystem a better place. So that's our jam.
Absolutely beautifully said. And listen, Marcus, you've definitely been helping quite a lot of people in the cryptocurrency, blockchain, and Web3 space. And I do feel you're perfectly fitting the role of a crypto evangelist. So what I'll do is, in the show notes,
Appreciate that. Yeah.
I'll definitely go ahead and mention all of your details. Society X, which I really like the name, is a pretty cool branding name for that as well. And I think our listeners should definitely fit by what you have to offer. So thank you so much, Marcus, for doing what you're doing in the space. Now, what is the best way for us to get in contact with you?
I think the best way is through LinkedIn.
Okay.
I know it's not the most sexiest platform like Gram or any other socials, but I mean just because if you're in the MENA region, just a professional tip, LinkedIn is a great platform for that. And the only way LinkedIn gets better is you bring your brilliance, you bring your beauty into the LinkedIn platform. And there are a lot of people who are actually looking for really great content and great connections. So you're just one connection away from greatness. That's my belief. So the one is through LinkedIn, and also we also have our website. We still need to update it, but we have the basic information like who we are and what we do, so you have a better understanding, and also who we partnered with. So you just don't simply trust me or George, but you also verify too. So which we absolutely recommend, because we do care about our reputation, but we also want people to actually not simply listen to what we say. We want people to think, and we want brilliant minds to work together, and that's how we grow too. So
absolutely. So I'll definitely go ahead and mention that in the show notes below. And listen, guys, I've known Markose for some time, and he's definitely, if not one of the nicest, humble, polite, and really kind person. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing in this
Thank you.
space. Thanks so much, Marcus. Have a nice one.
All right. Adios.
Marcus.
All right.